Okay, I think we got everything set here. Just tweaking my settings before we get going for the evening. Hope everybody's staying warm. Hope you enjoyed the snow. That was a nice change from our arid and horrific winter that we've been going through. But anyway, welcome into the show. It is Thursday night. My name is Brian Schott, and I am the publisher and managing editor of Utah Political Watch, an independent journalism outlet here in the state. I'm completely funded by my readers, my viewers, people just like you, no corporations, especially after we see the absolute, and pardon my language, shit show that's happening with CBS News right now and in other places in media. It's just a disaster. And that's why I think that independent journalism is the way to go. And I'm an independent journalist. No corporations, no billionaires. I answer only to you. And we're going to talk about what's happening in Utah politics tonight. So welcome into the show of the latest developments and what's happening in Utah politics. If you have any questions, any comments, feel free to leave them in the chat. Emma Jolo, one of our regular viewers on YouTube, says the mountains are so pretty now. It's nice to actually see snow in the mountains because that's where our water comes from in the summer. I'm still thinking the summer is going to be not great. I don't know why. Okay, I'm just checking one thing here. I'm not frozen on YouTube, am I? No, I think I'm okay there. Maybe. No, I'm good. I'm good. Okay. We're all good. I thought I was frozen on YouTube, but I'm not. So everything's set. Anyway, just I tweaked some settings on my setup here, and hopefully we will not have the freezing issue that we've had in the past. S Pumpkin Pie on Instagram says, "I love your specs." They're those pair eyewear. So I can take these off and put it on here. I actually. My desk, which is not the most organized thing in the world. I've got other ones here too. Like I can do this, and I can bring up. I got my blue ones down here as well. Let me see if I can right here. See, put the blue ones on if I want. But I like the pirate ones because it's kind of the way that I'm feeling right now with what's going on in the world. So anyway, but. We've had some big news that's not Utah politics, so allow me a moment to tell you about a couple of things that I am excited about. U2, one of my favorite bands in the world, dropped a surprise EP yesterday. It's called The Days of Ash, and it is so good. I have spent the entire day listening to it, and it is... I cannot stress how good this album is. They have a song called American Obituary that is about the Renee Good murder in Minnesota. That is fantastic. The song ends with them singing over and over again. And this takes me back to my high school days when I first fell in love with U2 because of the protest and the social consciousness of their songs. It ends with them singing over and over again, "The power of the people is stronger than the people in power." What an incredible message for this time we're in right now. And there's also a song, the last song on the EP that they do with Ed Sheeran. It's also fantastic. Like, this is some of their best work in years. So that's the first thing that is making me happy right now. And I think it's good to sometimes acknowledge things that make us happy. So that is, that's the first thing. The second thing is, and I'm going to need everybody to give me some good karma heading in tomorrow. Tickets for Bruce Springsteen's North American tour go on sale tomorrow. And I am hoping he's not coming to Salt Lake City. He never comes to Salt Lake City. I am hoping to get tickets to either see him in Phoenix or in San Francisco. So I'm going to be spending some time tomorrow trying to get tickets for that. So I just want everybody to, I'm asking for your well wishes. I'm asking for your karma, for good karma, as I wade into the hellscape that is Ticketmaster trying to get some tickets to see Bruce Springsteen on his tour, which is going to be, I don't know if you saw the release for it, but it is going to be one of the most politically charged tours we've had in a long time. He wrote that song Streets of Minneapolis, which is also about the murder of Renee Good and Alex Preddy. He's kicking off the tour in Minneapolis. The tour ends, I believe, in May in Washington, D.C. And this is going to be unlike anything we've seen in a while. And as I was talking with my wife tonight, I said, things may suck, but right now we are getting a pissed off U2 and a pissed off Bruce Springsteen. And I don't know if you're a fan of Billy Bragg, but he also released a new song about the murder of Renee Good and Alex Preddy, and we're getting a pissed off Billy Bragg. And so even though everything in the world is terrible, at least we're getting some good protest music out of it. So that's out of the way. A lot to talk about tonight on the live stream. And hopefully there's a lot, and hopefully I talk about the things you want to hear about. And if there's something you want to hear or you have a question, let me know. So let's go right off this because, here is a procedural question. And this one comes from Kansas City 5692 on YouTube. And they said HB 193, and I'm pulling that one up right now, but HB 193 did not pass a Senate committee today. And the question is, do bills that fail in committee usually stay dead for the session? Typically, yes. And I just pulled this up. HB 193 is Representative Nicolene Peck's bill that bans the use of public funds for transgender medical treatments and procedures. State insurance not paying for that. That bill did fail in a Senate committee today. It got a motion to recommend, failed. In fact, it actually died by a vote of 1-5, which is a pretty overwhelming. I would expect that this bill stays dead for the rest of the session. There is a possibility that they could reconsider their actions, and that would take one of the people to vote no to bring it up. But typically that's in the same meeting. And since the meeting is over with, obviously, that means that we're not going to be seeing that bill again. So that time has passed. There could be something really weird that happens where maybe they decide to lift it from that committee and bring it to the floor, but that happens very rarely. So I would expect that bill is dead for the rest of the session. But good question. A lot of people don't understand the process, how things work up on the Hill. And I think that's one of the valuable things of these sessions that we spend together, where I've been covering the Hill for 25, 27 years. There's not a lot that I haven't seen, and I can usually sniff out where things are going to go. And so if you have a question about the process, there are no dumb questions. I commend you for getting interested in politics and being able to and wanting to ask those questions. So anyway, yes, it's probably that that bill is dead for the rest of the session. As Punky Pie on Instagram says, I got a text saying my name was on the Prop 4 repeal that I never signed, but the name was a different initial, so I requested a paper. If you got that text, it's not everybody who signed got the text. It's everybody who was on a list that they bought. I got the text too, and I know I got it because I sign up for every political text that I can get on my Google Voice number, not on my regular number. Otherwise, I'd get texts all my time. I'd get texts all the time. So yeah, if you got that text, it doesn't mean that your name is on the petition. It means your name is in it and phone number is in a database somewhere. I know there's a lot of conspiratorial thinking about Prop 4, the Prop 4 repeal, and we're going to go over those numbers here in a second, especially after the organizers dropped so many signatures at the last second. And as I explained last time, that's not surprising. There's nothing fishy that happened about it. These campaigns always have a big crescendo at the end. So if you got that text, it doesn't mean that your name was on the petition or somebody signed for you or somebody forged your name. It means that your phone number was in a database. It's the same reason you get political text. So I know it seems weird, but there's absolutely no need to freak out about that. So, but good question. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. Let's see. Sarah Witchy on TikTok says, I found my deceased great grandpa's signature on the petition. I've heard that too. I have not been able to verify that. I've never been able to substantiate. There's a lot of anecdotal claims going about that people are finding that people are on the petitions and they never signed up. I haven't been able to verify that. The signature process, it's pretty extensive, and if your signature doesn't match, then they either try to contact you. That's the reason why they found so many fraudulent signatures down in Utah County. The Utah County clerk was finding so many signatures that did not match what was on file, and so they started calling people and said, hey, your signature doesn't match. Do you want to come in and cure this? And people were like, I never signed anything. And that's why there's now an active criminal investigation going on. That's the verification process. It's not foolproof, but it's pretty extensive. And let's go ahead and talk about those numbers for the Prop 4 repeal, because way up here in the TikTok chat, Not Mobs said, when will we know whether or not the repeal of Prop 4 will make it to the ballot? Remember, there are two thresholds that they need to cross. The first one is they need to cross a statewide total, and that's 140,748 signatures. They're probably going to hit that sometime next week. I would estimate Wednesday or Thursday of next week, they will hit that statewide total. So they'll be halfway there. As of this morning, as of today's numbers, and I track them every single day at utahpolitics.news. If you sign up for my newsletter, I'll send you an email when the latest numbers are up, but I track those every single day. They have 107,793 verified signatures on the list. They need just about 33,000 more to hit that statewide goal. They're just over 76.5% of the way there. So it's not if, it's when on the statewide goal. So that's the first thing that's going to finish. And I'm expecting that probably Wednesday or Thursday of next week. Hang on. It's getting a little dry there. Second thing, the second threshold that they have to pass, as we've talked about before, is they need to get 8% of verified signatures in 26 of the state's 29 Senate districts. It used to be 26 of 29 counties. I believe that's how it used to be, but now it's 26 of 29 Senate districts. Right now they've crossed the bar in 5. They added their 5th new district today. It's the first one they've added since early February, a couple of weeks ago. So now all of southern Utah, and I wish I could bring the map up right here, but I didn't set it up correctly. All of southern Utah, Senate districts 26, 27, 28, and 29 have all crossed the bar, and Senate District 1, which is in the northeastern corner of the state. We've got 2 more districts. Well, there's one more that's probably going to cross the finish line tomorrow, and that's Senate District 25, southern part of Utah County, in that area. And that one, they only need 153 more signatures. So they're probably going to cross that tomorrow. And that will give them 6, meaning they have 20 to go. There are 4 others that I would expect to qualify in the next week: Senate District 11, Senate District 2, Senate District 10, and Senate District 24. Those are almost locks to cross the finish line in the next few days. They are all at between 77 and 88% complete, and they only need a few hundred more signatures in each of them. So I expect those to go. I would think that it's possible, including Senate District 25, which I expect to get the required number of signatures tomorrow. if I expect the required number of signatures tomorrow, if that one goes, I expect there's probably 11 more that could possibly make it across the finish line in the next week or so. And so if they add Senate District 25 and 11 more, that would put them they're at 6 now, that would put them at 18. And so they're really close. And then it's going to be how many signatures they can add and how many are remaining in the pipeline to be verified. And if they can get to that 26 Senate districts, they can only afford to fail in 3 of them. And I've been doing some math about this, and you can again see this on my website, utahpolitics.news. But there have been approximately, if you have a 75% signature acceptance rate, you estimate 25% of signatures are thrown out. The signatures are bad. They aren't registered voters. They're not in the right Senate district, so on and so forth. If you look at those numbers, if you have a 75% acceptance rate, that means just about 144,000 signatures have been processed. It took 144,000 signatures for them to get to this 107,000 that they have right now. And then you have to think that the remaining signatures that are still in the pipeline, I estimated that maybe 95% of those will be concentrated in the districts that have not qualified yet. This is the number. If on Tuesday I wrote that if they had 240,000 signatures total and above, it was likely they would cross in the 26 districts that they need to put this on the ballot. The last 2 days have been so good for signature verification for them that I had to revise my estimates down. And so now I think that if their total number of signatures for the entire campaign, and remember, 143,000 have already been verified. If the total number of signatures is 230,000, that is submitted, I think that they will get on the ballot. If it's 230,000 or more. If it's less than 230,000, then things start to get a little funky with the math. I think that if it's 220,000, if they have 220,000 signatures approximately, they may only get qualified in 23 districts. That would leave them 3 short of what they need. If it's 210,000 signatures, I think they'll get across in 20 districts. And if it's just 200,000, they'll only get across in 18. And we don't know exactly how many are left in the pipeline. I'm sure we'll start to get some of those estimates going forward. But the number you need to be thinking about right now is 230,000 signatures. If they have 230,000 or more total, okay, and that includes the 144,000 that have already been verified. So if it's 230,000, it's like 90,000 signatures left to be verified. They're probably going to get this thing on the ballot for November. When will we know about this? Like I said, it's going to be in a rolling. It's going to be a rolling verification, and I think that we'll have a better idea at the end of next week as more of these Senate districts get across. We'll also know how many signatures are remaining to be verified, and that will help us get a better picture, a more clear picture of what is happening there. Let's see. Laura Tanya on Instagram says, if a deceased person is found on the list, how is that name redacted? I believe that the signature is thrown out and it would be flagged for the district attorney in that county, because the state updates their voter rolls. There has been some controversy about how often they do that, but the state updates their voter rolls. And I think they're moving to make it even more timely how they update and check it against death records. So I don't know the process for sure, but that's where things sit right now. I would expect I expect more news over the next couple of days, Like I said, next week they will cross the statewide threshold to put it on the ballot. There's no question that they're going to get there. There are likely enough signatures, but how many signatures are left will determine whether or not they qualify in those Senate districts. Nathan Detroit on Twitch checks in. Nathan Detroit, one of our subscribers at Utah Politics, Utah Political Watch. Nice to have you on board this evening, Nathan. Hope the kids aren't giving you too much trouble. So that's the first thing we've been talking about is the ballot initiative. I would expect it. I would expect that, you're going to start hearing news that they are meeting their goals. Expect this part, though. Once they hit that statewide goal, you're going to start hearing a narrative. We made it. They're going to be spiking the football. They're only halfway there. If they hit the statewide goal. Remember, they have to get those 26 Senate districts, but it's all about narrative shifting. It's like the main reason that they drop so many signatures at the last second. You have to have a flair for the dramatic. It's setting a narrative. We had so many signatures, and now you're seeing a lot of Republicans spiking the football over this. It's not over yet, but by my estimate, I would say it's more likely than not. If I had to pick a number, I'd say 70% likely that they're going to get this thing on the ballot right now. But once we know how many more signatures there are to be verified, that will give us a much better picture of what is happening. Let me look at some of the chat messages. Really active tonight on TikTok. Welcome in tonight, everybody. Appreciate you having it there. Steve Merrill says it's all about the balance of where the signatures come in. Too many under 50% right now. If they keep the same balance, 280,000 won't be enough. That's the problem, though, Steve. My analysis is showing that they are starting. The ones that are the Senate districts that are adding the most signatures are the ones that they need them in. The biggest movers today were Senate District 20, Senate District 17, Senate District 3, Senate District 19, 2, 18, 16, and 21. And all those have not qualified. Now, there are some problematic districts, but they keep growing. So I hate to argue with you, but I believe that seeing on the distribution that we're seeing right now, and if that continues, and if the momentum we're seeing in the number of signatures they're adding, I don't see how they don't qualify in enough districts with 230,000. Again, this is all going to change once we get a bigger picture of how many signatures are remaining. It sounds like the clerks are really ramping up their processes. They've verified 7,000, 8,000 signatures over the last 2 days. So they're really trying to increase their capacity, because remember, they have to be done by March 7th. Somebody asked me today, what happens if there are unverified signatures after March 7th? There won't be. The clerks have to be finished. They have to get them all done by March 7th. That's the last day. So they will verify every signature that they will verify every signature that they have up until that final deadline. So, let's see. Nathan Detroit says, previously, I had thought the count each day was reflective of how many they got in, maybe a few days delayed. Now they're still counting Sunday's mega drop, just limited by the hours in a day they have to count. Is that correct? We're just starting to see Sunday's mega drop, maybe just the very first part of it. I would estimate that before Sunday's drop, there were probably somewhere between 10 and 15,000 signatures already in the pipeline that had not gone through the verification process. That's just the assumption that I have to make. Well, we won't know for sure, but that's what I thought. So I think we're just starting to see the first wave of this big drop on Sunday. A lot of the counties, I suspect that they're going to be done sooner rather than later. And so, did I just freeze again on TikTok? No, I didn't. Okay. I suspect a lot of the counties are going to be done sooner rather than later, because as I wrote on Monday, more than half of the signatures, almost 60% of the signatures right now, are coming from just 3 counties: Utah County, Salt Lake County, and Washington County. There are 9 counties. Let me see, what do I have that number here? There are 9 counties that have accounted for less than 1% of all the signatures so far. That would be Beaver, Duchesne, Emery, Garfield, Grand, Rich, Paiute, Wayne, and Daggett. Those counties combined have accounted for about 1% of all the signatures. 25% of the signatures so far have come from Salt Lake County, 25% have come from Utah County, 12% have come from Washington County. So it's in the population areas of the state. I'll be fascinated to see if that picks up for Davis County and Weber County, because those are also some of the areas that have been lagging in this verification process. So that's where we are with the Prop 4. Let's see. A lot of people in the chat are saying that they found fraudulent signatures. As I said, there's a lot of claims of that. I know other people are looking into it. I just haven't had the capacity. Although I've been kind of a content machine over the last week. I've written approximately 3 stories a day over the past few days, which is a lot for an independent journalist. Plus, I'm producing videos online, and I'm sitting down with you and doing this TikTok. Steve Merrill says those are the areas with more personnel, so they may complete fast with big days, but can they sustain in those districts for 15 more days? That is the question. What is still remaining to be verified? What is still out there? Again, we're right at the first part of this large dump of signatures that they made on Sunday. We're just starting to see the impact from that, and that will start to flow through the system fairly soon. Let's see. Let's talk a little bit about the gerrymandering lawsuits. As you know, there are 2. There's one in federal court. That happened on, I believe, Wednesday. They argued in federal court. That is the lawsuit that is headed up by a group of Republican county officials and Representatives Celeste Malloy and Burgess Owens. And what they are asking is that the federal court blocks the map that was put in place by Judge Diana Gibson. They're arguing that when she did that, she usurped the constitutional authority of the legislature. She did not have the power to put a map in place. She only has the power to throw out illegal maps and ask for remedial maps, but she did not have the power to draw a new map. So they were making that case in front of a 3-panel group of judges in downtown Salt Lake City. I was reading some of the coverage of that. And the arguments that they were making is they don't know where they're going to be running. It's unfair to them. It's unfair to voters. Former Congressman, Democrat Ben McAdams, who is running in the 1st Congressional District that is under the new map, he waded into this by filing an amicus brief, making essentially the same argument, but for different reasons. He says that it's too late to go monkeying around with the maps again. It's too late to put a new map in place, and you've got Owens and Malloy coming in at the last second trying to block the maps. So we're waiting. Where is that one going to go? We don't know. They're waiting for the Utah Supreme Court to do something. We could get that decision from the Utah Supreme Court on the legislature's request to block the map and put the 2021 map that Judge Gibson back in place. They have asked the Utah Supreme Court to issue a ruling on that by tomorrow, the 20th, because we're coming up on deadlines for all of this. I was reading over some of the filings in that Utah Supreme Court case, and this is really strange. This I have not seen this reported anywhere, and it surprised me when I saw it. It happened last week, but Utah County Clerk Aaron Davidson is trying to intervene in that lawsuit that is currently the appeal that is being heard by the Utah Supreme Court. I believe on the 12th of February, he filed paperwork asking that he intervene in the case, arguing that he basically says that county clerks and county legislative bodies are legally essential to implementing whatever map the court or the legislature adopts. I'm reading off of my notes here as I was trying to parse what his argument is. So he says that county clerks and county legislative bodies, county commissions, county councils, they are responsible for administrating whatever maps go on. And he would like to... he is asking that they take this case, this appeal, and remand it back to the district court with instructions to add all 29 counties elections officials as defendants. If they don't do that, he's saying that he would like to participate in the appeal as an individual. He says that his argument is he has statutory duties in implementing whatever map that comes out of this, and he has already found problems with the court-ordered map, and that his interests are not being adequately represented. So that is a new wrinkle. At the last minute, literally last week, Utah County Clerk Aaron Davidson asked to intervene in this case that is being heard at the Utah Supreme Court. We could get as I said, we're expecting to get some sort of decision on this appeal from the Utah Supreme Court tomorrow. At least that's what the legislature is asking for. So maybe we'll see something then. I don't know. But that's one of the latest. But it really struck me as strange that Aaron Davidson, after all of this time, this thing has been in court for years, and now all of a sudden he thinks it is so important that he is granted to be an intervener into the case. He is urging the court also, and this is important, and this seems to be the default for the Republicans who are opposing this map. They are saying that the default should be, and I told you about this before, I told you that this was a possibility. They're saying that the default should be the 2021 map, which was thrown out by Judge Gibson because it violated Prop 4. That was a major point of contention in the federal lawsuit on Wednesday. Was this map legal? Was this map deemed illegal? They're arguing that the 2021 map, it has not been adjudicated as being a gerrymander. It was just that it violated the principles of Prop 4, but there's been no proof presented. All of this is an attempt to get the 2021 map in place because that is a map that is almost guaranteed to elect 4 Republicans, no matter who's running. Burgess Owens wants to run in that 4th congressional district that was drawn specifically to protect him in the 2021 redistricting. Remember, when he beat Ben McAdams, it was only by like 3,000 votes. And then when they drew the map, redrew the map, that district went to like an R+20. So it jumped. It became much more Republican because they took some of the more Republican areas of other parts of the state and moved it in there, and moved the Democrats and spread them out among the other 3 districts. That's the map that Burgess Owens wants to run under. That's the map that Mike Kennedy wants to run under. That's the map that Blake Moore wants to run under. And that's the map that Celeste Malloy wants to run under. They want nothing to do with the map that the judge put in place, and they really probably don't want anything to do with map C that the legislature drew. As I've explained to you in the past, that map, I've spoken with Republican strategists who work on congressional campaigns in the state, who work on congressional campaigns here in Utah, and they think that map that was drawn by the legislature, option C, the one that Judge Gibson said was an illegal gerrymander or did not follow the rules of Prop 4, that one could elect it has 2 districts that could be swing districts rather than one solid Republican district, and the 1st district isn't in super solid Republican. It's Republican leaning, but it's not solid Republican. That one has the potential to have 2 swing districts. So all of this is designed to have the courts hit pause and say, we're going back to the 2021 map. That would be the easiest thing to do right now while all of this gets sorted out in court. Is that going to happen? I don't know, but I think it is quite possible that we'll have the 2021 map in place. I would say that it's at least even odds right now because we don't know what the federal court's going to do and we don't know what the Utah Supreme Court is going to do. And again, we are expecting that decision to come down tomorrow, or at least that's what they've asked for. Kathy on YouTube wants me to explain what Aaron Davidson wants. What happened was on the 12th, I believe, if my dates are correct, as I'm looking over my notes, he filed in this appeal that went up to the Utah Supreme Court. This appeal has been in the Utah Supreme Court since January. All of a sudden, Aaron Davidson, Utah County Clerk, files asking to intervene, become a part of this, or at least let and if he's made 3 requests. One, to add all 29 counties, the county clerks and the county legislative bodies, your county councils, your county commissions, as defendants, and then send the whole thing back down to the appellate court or down to the district court. If they do that, it probably keeps the 2021 map in place because we're starting this whole process over because we'll have to hear all of their arguments. That's the first thing he asked for. The second thing he asked for is if they won't add all 29 counties, the county clerks and their county legislative bodies, he asked to intervene as just himself because as the clerk of Utah County, he says he has some statutory duties he has to do to run the elections because the elections are not run by the state, they're run by individual counties. Hold on. So he's asking to intervene in this lawsuit. And he said that he's found, according to these filings, he has already found some problems with the map that Judge Gibson put in place. And so he wants to be made a party of this case. And if they won't do that, he wants to at least put in his filing as an amicus brief, a friend of the court brief, making his arguments. And he is explicitly asking the Utah Supreme Court to put the 2021 map back in place while all of this plays out in court. Again, all of this is designed to get a single court. It's just going to take one. It's going to take one court to put the 2021 map back in place. That's all it's going to take. And we are coming up on the time is ticking. As I've said before, the deadline for all of this is probably March 9th. That is the day federal candidates can start filing for office. So that's what the Utah County Clerk is trying to do. He made this filing in court. He made this filing in court earlier. Patrick Flannery on YouTube says, "You're a dang socialist. Holy crap, I'm glad I saw this." I don't know what you're talking about, Patrick, but thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Let's go back through and see if there's any other questions or comments in the chat while I was explaining. I hope that explanation made some sense. Again, we are hoping to have some sort of clarity. We are hoping to get some sort of decision in this case about the maps that have been going on for years, maybe tomorrow. On TikTok, Brandon says, let's say they get it on the ballot. We're back to the discussion about the repeal of Proposition 4. He says, say they get it on the ballot. What happens when the people vote the same as before? Then what? I was thinking about this today before we started the live show. I was thinking about what this process could be. And if you subscribe to my newsletter, if you go to my website, I did something and gave you some information that you're not going to get anywhere else. This was exclusive to Utah Political Watch. I have access to the state's voter file. There's a company called L2, and they have provided me with access to the state's voter file. And all the names that are posted online, it has their voter ID number. And I am able to match most of the people who have signed the petition to their voter ID. There are a number that I cannot because of the way that the voter records are classified. So if they show up on that list, if their records are marked private or withheld, I can't match them to the file. But I have been able to match as of today. I think we had 107,000 total signatures on that list, and I was able to match just over 90,000, maybe around 92,000 of them to the voter file. And with that, I can take that information and I can look at, say, what county they're from or what political party they belong to. And wouldn't you know it, most of the people who have signed this petition to put the repeal of Prop 4 on the ballot are Republicans. Makes sense. This is a Republican-driven effort. The group behind the repeal, Utahns for Representative Government, it's just Republican Party officials. Republican Party Chairman Rob Axson is the head of that group, and a whole bunch of other elected Republicans and Republican Party officials are on that organization. So this is a Republican-led effort. But it looks like around 69% of the people who have signed onto the repeal petition are Republicans. And that's significant. This is why I started to think about this. That is incredibly disproportionate to their share of the electorate as a whole. Republicans make up about 52% of all voters in Utah, but they're responsible for almost 70% of the signatures on this petition. That is a 20% overperformance there. The next largest group of people who've signed the petitions are nonpartisan. They don't belong to any political party. That's about 20%, 19%. That's an underperformance of their share of the electorate because they make up around 27% of the electorate. 7% of the people who've signed this are Democrats. Again, another underperformance because according to the latest numbers, about 14% of registered voters in the state are Democrats. Now, I don't want to hear anyone saying, well, there's a bunch of Democrats who have registered as Republican. As we've explained before, there's no evidence, no hard evidence to support that claim. There's a lot of anecdotal evidence. There's a lot of people who know somebody's cousin's mother's brother did it. I personally know some people who've done it, but that does not translate to the kind of numbers that people are saying. There's no evidence that happened. The evidence that we have is that people joining the Republican Party, changing their registration to become Republicans, were nonpartisan beforehand. They were not registered with either party. So I don't want to hear that argument because it sounds great. It's a great narrative. It's not exactly true. But we're seeing that almost 70% of the people who have signed this petition are Republicans, okay? Now, here's what I got thinking about that. If that is the case, if you've got overwhelming Republican support for this repeal, Republicans want this on the ballot this year for a reason. They could do this anytime, but they want it on the ballot this year for a reason, because they think it's going to boost turnout among their voters. It's the exact same reason that they repealed the anti-union bill before the referendum could go on the ballot. They didn't want a bunch of angry voters angry about this union busting bill, to show up at the polls. So they repealed it. That's why they got rid of it. It wasn't because they saw the light. It wasn't because they had a change of heart. They looked at the environment and they don't want a bunch of pissed off voters showing up at the polls. That's 100% what this is. It is a purely political calculation. So if they put this thing, Prop 4, on the ballot, they are gambling that it's going to bring their voters to the polls. And I think that from what we're seeing from the people who have signed this, sorry, I have a little bit of a speech impediment at times. The people who signed this petition are overwhelmingly Republican, 20% higher than their share of the electorate. I think that theory holds some weight. Then Republicans responded to their calls to get people to sign this repeal of Prop 4 to put it on the ballot. They're banking that that's going to bring their voters to the polls, especially in a midterm year when Donald Trump is not on the ballot. Donald Trump has not been a huge driver of turnout for Utahns, but it's probably just enough. I think it was enough to get Burgess Owens to defeat Ben McAdams, and it might save their bacon in some races that might be close. That's my theory. And I'm usually right on these kind of things. So I'm guessing that's what they're trying to do. At least that's what this whole effort smells like for me. So anyway, I hope that makes some sense, but that's what I'm thinking. If you're seeing Republicans drive this effort to put it on the ballot, they are banking that it's going to bring their voters to the polls for exactly the same reason why they took the union busting referendum off the ballot, because they don't want those angry voters showing up to vote against them. So let's see, what do we have here? Ryan Hi-Fi says, how did the GOP manage to get all those signatures in such a short time? As I explained on Monday, it's a really boring answer. Once a signature packet needs to be turned in under Utah law within 30 days of the first signature being put on the packet. So the packets that they turned in on the 15th could have been in the field for weeks, and they just collected them all at the end. It's a boring answer that's how these things work. That's the calendar. They had to go and collect the and I know the group behind this repeal, they've been running their own internal verification process, which anything like this would do that. Any effort like this would have their own process to make sure that people on the ballot match their that they're registered voters and it's in this right county and so on and so forth. Because if you turn it in the wrong county, it doesn't get sent to the other county. That signature gets thrown out. So they have their own verification process. That also takes some time. They have to collect those signatures, verify them, and then get them to the county clerks. So they just had a bunch that they wanted to, they had a bunch that they turned in at the end. And that is also what happens. These ramp up towards the end. And you saw the amount of effort they put in towards the end on this, saying that they wanted to get people to sign that. So nothing funny happened with all the signatures that came in at the end. That's just how these things work. Let's see. Corey asks, how many signatures did repeal Prop 4 need? Will they get enough? As I said at the beginning of the show, they are going to hit the statewide requirement. They have 107,000, almost 108,000 signatures now. They need just over 140,000, almost 141,000. They're going to hit that sometime next week. Easy. The big question is whether or not they get it in enough Senate districts. And the Senate districts, they have to hit 26 of 29. They added Senate district, the 5th district today, meaning they need 21 more. I expect another one's going to be added tomorrow, maybe 2, and then we're going to see more districts fall off the map as the week goes on. I've identified probably 12 districts that could be added to their total in the next week, which would put them at 16 or 17, meaning they would need 13 or 14 more. Am I doing that in the math right? No, 16, 8 to 9 more, I believe. Oh boy, I've been talking a long time. My brain kind of glitched out there for a second. So anyway, that's what's going to happen. Let's see. Let me see. Dan on Instagram says the main reason you have so many Republicans as registered so many Democrats as registered Republicans is because if you're a Democrat, you can't vote in the primary or Republican. You can't vote in the Republican primary, but if you're a Republican, you can vote for all the Democrats. That is true, but people have looked at this. They've looked at the data. This really came into vogue in 2020, and I've told this story before, but former Senator Jim Debacus, former Democratic Party Chair Jim Debacus, in 2020 launched this effort, Party Rating. He urged Democrats to change their registration, become Republicans, to vote in the Republican gubernatorial primary. That was your Spencer Cox, John Huntsman, Greg Hughes, Thomas Wright. A whole bunch of candidates were on the ballot. And he literally changed his registration from Democrat to Republican. And he urged them Democrats to do that. Well, after it happened, I believe it was the Princeton Election Project, and these guys know their stuff. They analyzed voter registration data. And yeah, a bunch of people changed their registration before the primary, but it was mostly, as I said before, independents registering to be Republicans. And then they didn't change back. And then there was not a huge move backward. So it was mostly independents. When you see people changing their registration, the vast majority of them are independents who are becoming Republicans because they want to vote in the Republican primary. The Republican primary is closed. Only registered Republicans can vote in it. The Democratic primary is open. Anybody can vote in it as long as you don't vote in another primary. So there is all the data, the hard data says there's not this huge wave of Democrats who have registered as Republicans to mess up the Republican primary. Although the legislature believes it because they've changed a bunch of rules about when you can change your registration because they wanted to stop that sort of thing from happening, even though all the data, all the evidence we have says it's not happening. So that's about all I have to say on that right now. Nathan Detroit on Twitch says, but Brian, you haven't heard my meta conspiracy that involves Rhino Dems purposely submitting fake signatures to make it look like the repeal will get on the ballot. Sneaky, sneaky. That's funny, but it also, I want to talk about this. I wrote this story today. I've been working on this story for weeks because people have been telling me about it, and I've been trying to figure out everything that happened. And I had a lot of it nailed down, but I didn't know what the final outcome was. And I wrote this today. It's quite the tale. If you have time, go over to utahpolitics.news and read it. But this morning, the Utah Republic, did we freeze? Hang on. I just need to check and make sure that my YouTube didn't freeze because we're getting that hour point. And no, we didn't. Okay. It was my monitor. So good. Okay. Now I can tell the story. So I've been working on this story, for a matter of weeks. This thing has been playing out for a while. But this morning, Thursday morning, the Salt Lake County Republican Party, not the Utah Republican Party, the Salt Lake County Republican Party announced that they had disciplined 8 of their members and stripped them. They disciplined 8 members. 7 of them had their leadership roles in the party stripped, and a few of them were actually banned from attending any Republican Party function except for the party caucuses until May of 2030. And that includes former Utah State Board of Education member Natalie Klein. Do you remember the woman who she misgendered a basketball player here in Utah back in 2024? She posted a Facebook post implying that this female high school basketball player might be transgender, and it caused a wave of hatred and harassment towards the family. The cops had to show up because they were getting so much harassment. And the legislature ended up censuring her, and there was a whole hand-wringing thing. It was really not one of the most courageous moments by the Utah legislature because many in the Republican caucus agreed with what she did. They think she didn't do anything wrong. Well, she and a few others have been banned from holding any party elected or appointed positions, or from attending any Republican Party events, except for the caucuses, until May of 2030. And how we got here, it is one of the craziest and frankly stupidest things you will ever hear. This story is crazy and stupid, and it's fantastic. So what happened? I'm gonna take another drink here. Buckle up, kiddos, because this story is something else. Last year in August, the Salt Lake County Republican Party was considering issuing endorsements in municipal races, mayor, city council, so on and so forth. Those races are non-partisan. They're non-partisan, so there's no party nomination. the parties really don't get involved. Now, Utah County has done this for a couple of years. They've issued endorsements for Republicans in those races because they want Republicans to hold those positions, but they're not identified as Republicans on the ballot, although Representative Ryan Cox has a bill that would put their party affiliation on every ballot, including municipal races and, get this, judicial retention elections. That won't unnecessarily inject politics into those elections, but I digress. So the Salt Lake County Republican Party wanted to issue endorsements in these municipal races. So what they did, this is after the municipal primaries had happened. So they invited candidates in all of the races to come in and make their pitch to the party's executive committee. And if there was a 2/3 vote in the executive committee, that person got the endorsement. That meeting was scheduled for September 2nd. The day before September 2nd, Tracy Halverson, and Tracy Halverson, she loves to take things to the courts. I'll put it this way. She is currently involved she was part of the lawsuit, the endless lawsuits trying to undo the new Utah state flag. She was part of this huge, absolutely bonkers federal lawsuit that alleged Spencer Cox and a whole bunch of state officials were part of this giant racketeering enterprise to illegally keep signature gathering candidates on the ballot. That lawsuit got thrown out earlier this week. Well, she and about 7 other people, the 7 people who were disciplined, fired off an email to the executive party. And they warned that the party bylaws do not allow this. They don't allow them to make, the party can't endorse a candidate outside of the convention system. We don't have conventions. We don't have party conventions in municipal election years, odd number years, because parties don't nominate candidates. Well, she warned that they can't do this under the bylaws, and they said it also broke Utah law because it was illegal election interference. And then she cited a piece of Utah code about protecting voters, quote, lawfully exercising their rights, and argued that the party issuing an endorsement in this way was an unlawful attempt to influence the outcome. Spoiler alert, party endorsements are legal in Utah. They are protected speech. In fact, it's what a party does. It's almost the primary reason for a party to exist. So they fired off this email. What I have uncovered I've spoken to a number of sources and people telling me the story behind the scenes and trying to nail it down. The real problem, the real reason for this email was Halverson was upset that Tawny McKay, the wife of State Senator Dan McKay, was running for mayor in Riverton and was up for one of these endorsements, or was going to ask for an endorsement. Halverson has a long-running beef with Dan McKay. She does not like the man. She hates him. She's a long-running grudge against him, and she's currently challenging him for the Republican nomination in Senate District 18. In the email that she sent accompanying this letter claiming that they were breaking the law by issuing an endorsement, it gives the game away for her. She writes, and this was not part of what was signed by the others, but this was in her email. She wrote, Riverton does not want to have a city mayor who is married to State Senator Dan McKay. Even if both were entirely honest, common sense suggests that such a connection would be inappropriate and could raise questions about impartiality and conflicts of interest. I also dug up another email. Actually, it's not hard to dig this up if you know where to look. Tracy Halverson posts this stuff online all the time. It was all out there for everyone to see. I was one of the people who was able to put these pieces together. On September 12th, Halverson sent a letter to the Riverton City prosecutor that accused Tawny McKay of trying to buy votes. She was running some sort of contest on her social media, urging people to go into local Riverton businesses and take a picture of them holding a product from the business, and then they might win a gift card from businesses in Riverton. And Halverson sent this email to the Riverton City prosecutor accusing McKay of a felony, saying that's a felony. She's trying to buy votes. The part of the letter that I found hilarious. This was on September 12th, 2 days after Charlie Kirk was shot and killed at Utah Valley University. And of course, Tracy Halverson brings up Charlie Kirk in this email to the Riverton City prosecutor. This is what she wrote. Given the serious nature of this violation, particularly in consideration of President Trump's presidential action issued on March 25th, titled Preserving and Protecting the Integrity of American Elections, and in the wake of recent violence and assassination of Charlie Kirk taking place in the state of Utah, it is imperative that we restore law and order. This begins with the integrity of Riverton's municipal elections. So this whole thing kicked off because Tracy Halverson hates Dan McKay and didn't want his wife to get the endorsement of the party. Okay, that's the backstory. So we are now at the September 2nd executive committee meeting where candidates were invited to come in and ask for the endorsement. Halverson and her allies attend in person. There's cause a ruckus. There's a lot of accusations, a lot of yelling, a lot of shouting going on. And eventually the executive committee caves. Part of the objection that they raised about Tawny McKay is that she was in a race with another Republican for Riverton mayor. And that was, let's see, she was running against Tish I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly, Buroker. Tish Buroker had won the municipal primary and ended up winning the general. But they are both registered Republicans. And they have kind of a point that you were going to endorse one over the other. So eventually the executive committee caves and says, we're only going to issue endorsements in races with one Republican. So the only candidate who got their endorsement on that day was Cindy Sharkey, who was running for Sandy City mayor. They issued one endorsement after this, okay? After the meeting is over, Halverson sends an email to Salt Lake County chairperson Mike Carey, the chair of Salt Lake County, who Halverson had run against for Salt Lake County chair in 2025 and lost. She emails him and says, and basically said, it was a good thing that you changed your mind and made it so you only endorsed in races with one candidate because that helped to, quote, mitigate a claim against the party. Tracy Halverson, as I've said before, is famous for suing people. She loves to sue people. In fact, her father is in the middle of a huge lawsuit against the Bureau of Land Management. Oh, he claims he has some land that is landlocked around federal, right in the middle of federal land, and he's trying to get an easement. He's sued the Bureau of Land Management and a number of agents individually in federal court. And additionally, when a magistrate judge by the name of Cecilia Romero ruled against her father a number of times in that first lawsuit, he turned around and sued the magistrate judge, claiming a racketeering charge. So they love to go to court. They love it. And so you read that statement from Tracy Halverson, and it's a threat of a lawsuit. And that's what Mike Carey, the chairman of the Salt Lake County GOP, said. He says, he replies, are we to take your statement about mitigating claim against the party as a threat you intended to sue the party if the motion only endorsed candidates in races with one Republican had failed? Okay. And then they're going back and forth, and Halverson actually brings up the lawsuit that her dad is involved in, and so on and so forth. And then Carey calls out Halverson, saying that this is just a vendetta against Dan McKay and his wife. And he says, if you still believe the party had broken the law, you should go to law enforcement. And that's exactly what Tracy Halverson did. She and her 7 other allies on September 5th sent a letter to the city attorneys in Harriman, Riverton, and Sandy, accusing party leaders of, quote, illegal election interference and urging them to prosecute. And on this letter that they sent to these prosecutors, they used their official party titles: precinct chair, central Republican State Central Committee member, executive committee member, so on and so forth. They used all of their all their titles on this letter. Kiki and the Cats on TikTok says, please tell me they're not doing this all on our dime. No, this is all unofficial. The lawsuit where they're trying to overturn the 2020 election that just got thrown out of court, that's on the public dime, at least part of it. They've eaten up so many administrative hours in the Utah Attorney General's office with this lawsuit. But the one that I'm talking about right now, not on the public dime. This is private. So they send this letter to the city attorneys in Harriman, Riverton, and Sandy, accusing party leaders of election interference and urging them to prosecute them. They also CC'd a copy of that letter to Attorney General Pam Bondi, FBI Director Kash Patel, and then FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino. They also misspelled Pam Bondi's last name as Bondie. But they send this letter to them. So they send a letter to city attorneys and the Justice Department urging that they prosecute members of the party leadership, citing a law that does not apply to what they claim it does. But they signed this letter using their official party titles, and that's where they got in trouble. That was a problem. It kicked off this whole investigation. It kicked off the attempt to bring charges against them inside the party. It was a large investigation, and it came to a head on February 9th when they had a hearing, a trial about these charges that lasted, I've been told, almost 8 hours. They kicked off at 6 p.m. and I heard that they adjourned close to 3 a.m. And people were yelling. People showed up with lawyers, and they were trying to get the votes to impose sanctions against these members of the party. And that's exactly what happened. And they finally revealed what those charges were today. One of the women was accused of injuring the good name of the Salt Lake County Republican Party under Robert's Rules of Order. She was censured. 2 other people were kicked off of their seats on the party's executive committee, the Salt Lake County Party's executive committee. A couple of others, if you're on social media anywhere, particularly X, during the 2024 election, you might have come across Casey Gale. He was the guy behind Phil Lyman's social media. Never disclosed that he was getting paid for Phil to hype Phil Lyman up, which he did constantly, but he was paid by the Lyman campaign. He was one of the people who lost his party position along with Natalie Klein, and has been banned from attending any Republican Party events except for the caucuses through May of 2030. Halverson got some additional charges. Not only was she found to have injured the good name of the Salt Lake County Republican Party, she was convicted of violating the standard of conduct for her repeated social media attacks on party leadership, party members, using derogatory language towards them, and for engaging in disruptive behavior at Republican Party meetings. I know that the police have been called a couple of times because she's shown up at Republican Party events. In fact, she showed up, one of the ones was this whole thing was playing out. They had to call the cops. And she was also accused of posting Party Chairman Mike Carey's private cell phone online. And so that's what this was all about. As I told you, it is the stupidest story. It is the stupidest controversy. And it chewed up so much time. And it was all because they tried to claim that Utah law does what it wasn't supposed to do, and it was all about a personal vendetta, and it chewed up so much time with the Salt Lake County Republican Party. But this is the kind of thing that happens in states where you have a supermajority, where there's really no opposition party. Parties get extreme, they get more insular, there's more infighting. This is what happens. It happens everywhere. But that's what happened. And it was one of the dumbest stories. It's so much chaos. But if you want to read the whole thing, I think I told you the whole story, but if you want to read more about it and links to some of the letters, I've got links to the letter they sent to the to Pam Bondi and Kash Patel, who apparently is on his way over to the Olympics on the FBI's private jet to watch the men's hockey team play in the gold medal match. MS Now reported that tonight. It's going to cost taxpayers about $75,000 for that trip. But anyway, you can read those letters over there at utahpolitics.news. Let's see. Well, we've been going for a while here. I appreciate everybody being on board. As always, if you have any questions, any comments, anything you want to talk about, leave the comments in the chat, and we will. And I'll try to get to them here in the next 15 minutes or so as I wrap this up. Let's see. A couple of other things that have been on my radar. And if you weren't here earlier, I did explain that we are expecting the Utah Supreme Court to issue some sort of ruling on the appeal of the maps, an appeal of the map that was put in place by Judge Gibson. We're expecting that tomorrow. At least the legislature has asked the Utah Supreme Court to issue that by the 20th, which is tomorrow. Republican Trevor Lee has a new, pretty draconian anti-immigration bill. I reported that out this morning. This is HB 571. Earlier this week, he got HB 88, which cut off most public assistance for undocumented immigrants through a House committee. It passed House Committee 7-3. He spouted some. I'm writing a story on this, or I'm working on a story on this, but he spouted some statistics about immigrants in Utah that are just not true. I don't know where he got them. He probably made them up, but he got that bill through a committee. This new bill, though, is wild. Hang on a second. It is a sledgehammer. It would make daily life completely unlivable, almost unlivable for undocumented immigrants in Utah. It is a sweeping bill, and it is a maximalist crackdown on immigrants in the state. It would outlaw sanctuary policies for cities and counties. We don't have any official sanctuary cities in Utah. This would make that illegal. In fact, it would go to the part that if a city adopts that an ordinance like that, making themselves a sanctuary, anything smelling like a sanctuary ordinance, it would require the attorney general to step in and sue that city or municipality. The court would be forced to block it. And it also says that the public officials who voted for that or who tried to implement that policy could be impeached or removed from office for it. It adds that to the list of things that you can impeach someone for. So that's the first thing that this HB 571 does. It forces local jails to assist federal immigration enforcement. It also narrows first-time homebuyer, the state's first-time homebuyer program to people who are only in the country lawfully. And that is driven by this. I'm sure you've seen it. J.D. Vance, the Vice President J.D. Vance has said it. President Donald Trump has said it, that undocumented immigrants are the reason why nobody can afford a house. They're driving up housing prices because they're snapping up all the houses. At the same time, they're using up all the public services. I mean, the cognitive dissonance is unbelievable, but that's where we're at right now. And so that's what's driving this. The first-time homebuyer assistance could only be available to people who are lawfully present in the United States. That, as I said, that seems to have come out of these claims on the right that undocumented immigrants are the ones who are driving up housing prices and why no one can get a house. Study after study after study has shown that undocumented immigrants are overwhelmingly renters, not buyers. They are mostly ineligible for federally backed mortgages through FHA. I don't know where they're getting these mortgages, but they are mostly renters. And part of the problem of our housing crunch is because it's been decades of underbuilding. We've been building McMansions rather than enough housing to let people buy houses. And there's also a construction labor shortage and driving all the immigrants out of the state. And that's the point of this bill. The point of this bill is to make it so that immigrants don't want to be here because they won't be able to access anything. They already, under his HB 88, wouldn't be able to access public services, and this one just cracks down on everything else. So that's the second thing it does. It also makes it illegal for any person to knowingly hire or employ an unauthorized immigrant, and it has steep escalating penalties. The first violation is a 1-year suspension of the business license and fines of up to $10,000. Repeat violations could mean multi-year suspensions or a permanent loss of their license and fines of up to $500,000. And if an undocumented worker does something that causes the death of someone, the business could be held liable for that because they hired them. Also, and any company that knowingly hires 50 or more unauthorized workers, that's a third-degree felony. But there's a part of this that is really alarming because it modifies worker compensation laws here in the state. If an employer unknowingly hires an unauthorized worker and that person is injured on the job, the employer then becomes personally liable for all the medical costs of that employee. They cannot shift those costs to insurance. They have to pay for it out of pocket, and they face fines of up to $50,000 per violation. Basically, it removes the safety net for and protections for workers who might be immigrants by making the employer responsible for all of the medical care if they are hurt on the job. It also requires employers, they have to verify work authorization status before they file any workers' compensation claim for an employee. So that just adds another layer to those claims. It also cuts off banks to immigrants. You know what remittances are? That's a major source of income for people in third world countries. People in the United States, people come here to work, and then they send money to their family back home, Mexico, Guatemala, wherever. And they usually use companies, think Western Union. Well, this would cut that off, because under this bill, HB 571, if a person wants to send money to another country through Western Union, the company has to verify their ID, make sure that they have a legal ID, that they are a legal resident of the United States, and keep a copy of that ID for 5 years. And if they do send money without verifying, then it faces a penalty of up to 25% of whatever money was transferred. It also says that banks and credit unions cannot accept the state's driver's privilege cards. So that would stop people who are here without lawful status from opening up bank accounts, renting safe deposit boxes, or any other banking services. So it cuts off banking as well as access to worker protections. It's a very draconian bill. That one was just introduced earlier this week, and it is a lot. Let's see. What do we have here? I'm going back through some of the other comments here. Dan says, by the way, just appreciate you keeping up the good work. Thanks, Dan. I work my tail off. I really do. I sit down at this desk, the one you are seeing me at right now. I usually sit my butt down here at about 6 a.m. and I don't get up until close to 6 p.m. As I'm writing, recording videos, writing scripts, so on and so forth, working on the website, doing all the administrative stuff, plus running the business of Utah Political Watch. So thank you for noticing. I appreciate it. I love it, though. It is so So invigorating to do this sort of thing. Let's see. Laura Tanya on Instagram says, what is the likelihood that HB 88 will get signed by Cox? Last I saw, and I will check the status right now. I'm bringing that up. It got through a committee. No, that's Senate Bill 88. That's the wrong one. Bringing up HB 88, the fifth substitute. It was pushed through a committee on the 17th, which was Tuesday, and that it went through committee 7-3. It is waiting for a vote on the House floor. So it still needs to get through the House. It still needs to get through a Senate committee, and then it still needs to get through the Senate. So right now, I don't think that we can even speculate on whether the governor would sign it or not, because it still needs to get all the way through the rest of the process. Let me see. Heading over here to, let me see. Mjolnir says, is there a future where we get to see you and Bell talk politics? I don't know who Bell is. Forgive me. I'm not sure who that is. But Mjolnir also says, did Trevor's attempt to change streets after a dead racist pass or die? He's talking about Charlie Kirk and the bill to change the Harvey Milk Avenue after Charlie Kirk in Salt Lake City. That bill, I think it is still sitting in the Rules Committee. I'll take a look real fast at that one, but I think it's still sitting in the Rules Committee. It hasn't been assigned to a committee yet. That one is Highway Designation Amendments, HB 196, and that is still sitting in the House Rules Committee. It has not been assigned to a committee as of yet, so it hasn't gone anywhere. In fact, this bill that this HB 88, which cuts off public assistance to immigrants, that made it through a committee earlier this week. It's pretty much the only piece of legislation that Representative Lee has that's still alive. Most of his other stuff is either sitting in the Rules Committee or it's been killed in committee. One of his the bill that has made it the farthest so far was his election bill, and I'm going to be writing something about that in the next day or two, because he tried to sneak in a provision that would have given this pretty prominent election denier access to your voter information. They tried the same thing last year. It was Carrie Ann Lisenby, who's one of Representative Lee's allies, tried the same thing last year, and this provision seems almost completely lifted from her bill last year that didn't get through. He tried to do that. That bill had made it the farthest so far. It got all the way through the House, barely made it through the House. I think it passed 39-30. A lot of people weren't voting at that time. But then it was tabled in a Senate committee. So a lot of his bills just haven't gotten there yet. That's the only one of his that is still alive right now. Let's see, any other, Lady of the Great Salt Lake. Again, I'm going to give another pitch to her TikTok channel. If you're not following her on TikTok, you should. She has such great information, environmental information about the Great Falls Salt Lake. I'm a part of a number of calls, a number of I'm going somewhere with this, a number of trainings, a number of discussions about what people are looking for in our media environment. One of them is authenticity. That's one of the things that everyone keeps coming back to. Authenticity and passion about a subject. And her TikTok account, Lady of the Great Salt Lake, she is authentic and she is very passionate about what she does. And I learn a lot and I recommend it highly. So if you are on TikTok, you should follow that. I don't know if you're on other channels, but that's the one. That's the one where I follow you there. But she says, what's the odds that a bill that hasn't been assigned to a committee could pass this session? Everything is still in play. We're starting to run out of time, but everything is still in play. I think the final committee hearings are like the week before the final week. Everything has to have 2 committee hearings unless they suspend the rules. So we're starting to run out of time and bills are stacking up. So it's going to get very hard for bills to get through the process, although they sometimes do. Like a bill that I wrote about not this morning, but earlier this week, the new anti-DEI panic bill from Representative John Johnson. That one was just made public earlier this week, and it was in a Senate committee today where it passed. Now, it just so happened to be the Senate Education Committee, where John Johnson, who is the author of the bill, is the chair, so he gets to decide which bills go on to the agenda. But it has made it through. So, there's no really hard and fast rule. And if you're not aware of that bill, as Senate Bill 295, Representative John Johnson has spent the last couple of years trying to dismantle every diversity related program in state institutions. And this latest bill just continues that attack on diversity. But it also does something really interesting, because what it does is it mandates diversity on college campuses. So it attacks diversity, but it also mandates a certain kind of diversity on college campuses. And I wonder I wonder what kind of diversity that could be. Well, what it does is it requires universities to hold events on public policy that have, quote, differing viewpoints. They have to publicize these events. They have to record these events, but they have to be events on differing viewpoints. And universities that don't do it can have their budgets cut until they comply. And what this is all part of the attempt to force more conservative speakers, more conservative viewpoints on college campuses, and require them to do that. But the rest of the bill, it attacks school clubs. You remember, if you've been around Utah for a while, you'll remember that the state spent most of the 1990s in federal court in a fight over gay-straight alliances in K through 12 schools. Well, this wades back into that. This bill wades back into that, talking about what kind of clubs that they can have at K through 12 schools, and it also has more extensive parental notices of those clubs. So we're going there again. So this bill, it cracks down on DEI. It extends the state's crackdown on DEI, but it also forces political ideology onto college campuses, but only a certain kind of ideology. There is a carve out. There is a carve out that professors or can have a guest, or there can be a speaker who can be brought in to say something provocative, something controversial, and they wouldn't get punished for that. But everything else, these colleges have to have topics on policy subjects, and they have to have differing viewpoints. So sit with that for a second. No DEI, getting rid of all of the diversity programs, but you're requiring a kind of diversity on college campuses. So anyway, that bill was just made public earlier this week, and it's already through a Senate committee. But the thing you need to understand is that the chairs of the individual committees, they decide the agenda and which bills get put on the agenda or not. And since John Johnson is the chairman of the Senate Education Committee, of course his bill got put on the agenda for that at the earliest possible moment, or there's possible time it could. I'm starting to run out of steam here. We've been talking for an hour and a half, so I'm getting ready to wrap up. Stay tuned. I spend a lot of time listening to right-wing podcasts, particularly podcasts involving people here in Utah, because I think it's important to understand where some of these ideas are coming from, or what your elected officials are saying. I'm thinking of turning that into a series on the website where I sort of break down what they said. And I think the very first, and one of my very first, I guess, targets is going to be Senator John Johnson's Politicket podcast. And if you've never heard of it, you're not alone. Nobody's heard of it. He gets like 40 viewers per episode. I get, so anyway, but he so desperately wants to be taken as, wants to be considered a very serious thinker. Do you remember the part in Arrested Development where all the magicians showed up and they had that sign that said, "We demand to be taken seriously"? That is John Johnson's podcast. Anyway, so I'm probably going to start that as a series on the website. So anyway, let's see. I think that's going to probably do it for this evening. If anybody has any final comments, any final questions, or anything they want to talk about, please leave it into the in the chat here. You got just a couple of minutes. As I said before, and I said a couple of times, we are expecting some sort of ruling from the Utah Supreme Court in the gerrymandering case, in the legislature's appeal of the gerrymandering case. They have asked the court to weigh in or issue a decision by the 20th to give them time to do whatever appeals they need to do. The 20th is tomorrow. So hopefully we'll hear something tomorrow. And as soon as I hear it, I will let you know about it. At my website, utahpolitics.news, every story I write, it goes out as an email. So you'll know as soon as it is published. If you sign up, you can go over there, utahpolitics.news, sign up for free. If you appreciate what I do, I'm an independent journalist. I'm funded by you. I'm funded by my viewers and my listeners. If you feel like it, you can become a subscriber, $5 a month. You get some extra stuff, or you can throw some money in the tip jar. Anyway, that's where we are. So thank you so much for watching tonight. I hope you had a great Thursday. Circling back around to where we started on this, listen to the new U2 EP, Days of Ash. It is tremendous. It is so good. Like, I cannot describe how good this album is. It's great. The opening song, American Obituary, is about the death of Renee Good in Minnesota. It is, if you loved Sunday Bloody Sunday, and I loved Sunday Bloody Sunday, like that was, I was an idealistic high school student when that came out. A story. My very first concert was at Red Rocks in Colorado, and it was U2 where they filmed Live Under a Blood Red Sky. That was my very first concert, and I've been a U2 fan ever since. So that album is so good. Go and listen to it. They do a song with Ed Sheeran that is tremendous. And the second thing is, again, asking for your good vibes, asking for your good thoughts, as tomorrow tickets for Bruce Springsteen's No Kings tour go on sale, and I'm going to try to get tickets to see him in Phoenix and in San Francisco. My son lives in Phoenix. My brother lives in San Fran. I can go out there and go to the show with them. So I'm going to try to wade through the Ticketmaster hell and get those tickets. One last thought. If you all know the song "Born in the USA" by Bruce Springsteen, right? I mean, everyone knows that song. If you're aware of the show that he did on Broadway back in 2022 and 2023, and it's on Netflix. They recorded this on Netflix, and you should go watch it because it's great. He does a version of Born in the USA, and I was fortunate enough to see his show when he revived it right after COVID on Broadway. And if you've never been in a theater with Bruce Springsteen and maybe 500, 800 people in the theater, and that's it, and it's just Bruce Springsteen on stage with a piano and a guitar and a harmonica telling stories, oh my goodness. Anyway, in that special, and you can watch it on Netflix, he does a version of Born in the USA that is astonishing. It is in a minor key. It is angry. It's lyric forward. It's not the fist pumping anthem that Born in the USA is. The first time I saw it on the Netflix special, my jaw hit the floor. It was so different. It was so vital. And like I said, it was raw and angry, and it's out there. You should go watch it on Netflix. And if I'm fortunate enough to get tickets to the show when he's going on tour, and he has explicitly said that this tour is political, he's kicking it off in Minnesota. He wrote that song Streets of Minneapolis about the murders of Renee Good and Alex Preddy. This is going to be a very political show. I get chills thinking about what that song is going to sound like on this tour, and it just feels important. And as a longtime Springsteen fan, it feels important for me to be there. So anyway, I'm looking for your good vibes as I try to get tickets to the show tomorrow. Anyway, that's it for me tonight. I will keep an eye on politics. You keep doing what you're doing. You keep safe. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your eyeballs. Thank you for your support. And we will do this again soon. I appreciate all of you. Stay safe. Love you all.